The Royals, along with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City, are teaming up to shut out the stigma of behavioral health. And to that end, I'm joined by Dr. Greg Nawalanic, a psychologist at the University of Kansas Health System. And Dr. Nawalanic is here to talk about the medical side, if you will, maybe the clinical side of behavioral health. And I just want to begin with your personal feelings about an organization like the Royals not only addressing something like this, but bringing it into the stadium.
I mean, it's a monumental step because this discussion around mental health is so important, and it's one of the things that's been kind of left out. We see all the different ribbons for cancer and the soldiers and whatever, but mental health is the one thing that's been missing in every single professional sports arena. So for the Royals to be willing to take this on and bring it not just to their social media or whatever, but bring it in the stadium, talk about it in the middle of a game, this is a big deal. Have promotional giveaway, have conversations around it, have you do this. I mean, this is a really big step, and it really does a lot in reducing the stigma and helps people to understand that if we can talk about that here, maybe we can talk about it at home. Maybe we can ask questions, and so it's really a huge development.
I'm glad you brought that up because from my personal experience, it was a big hurdle for me to get over, that this was not a battle of my will and how strong I was, that I had a medical condition. And you've talked about the check engine light in your car. Can you talk about how that applies to someone deciding whether they need to come and see somebody like you?
Well, so when we think about our dashboard lights in the car, you've got the low tire pressure. You think about that like if you're hungry, all right, that's on, I gotta eat. Low oil pressure, I gotta sleep, I'm tired. The check engine light is kind of those icky feelings that we get, depression, anxiety, and they're kind of nebulous. It's like this cloud that just envelops us, and we really don't know exactly what's causing it and what's going on. But we all know that it happens. And we just kind of get this sense as Americans that we can just white knuckle it and just get through, and we'll dive into work or whatever it is, sometimes substance abuse, whatever it might be, that helps us to just shove those feelings down. And so it's important that we're not ignoring that light in ourselves and that we're actually doing something. And when you get into help and therapy, you can kind of it's like getting under the hood in the car and finding out, why is the light on? What's really going on? What's the problem? What do we need to address? And so that's where it becomes so important, and it's such an essential thing to do.
And life is hard. I mean, we're going to have struggles in life. We're going to have disappointments in life. There's going to be suffering in life. There are times when we are going to feel depressed. But what are some of those lights on the dashboard when someone realizes that this is not just my life circumstance?
Right, and I think that's a very important thing to distinguish, is that it's appropriate when we have a major disappointment to be upset and to kind of shrink back and withdraw a little bit. It's when there is no identifiable specific stressor, no major life circumstance that's gone on, and we're still noticing things like a lack of interest and pleasure in things that we used to really enjoy. You're either not sleeping as much as you usually do or sleeping a lot more than you used to. Changes in appetite. These are all big symptoms around depression. And then also, when you get to a point of feeling hopeless or helpless, those are kind of the two big ones at the end, where when you don't believe that this can ever get better, that's where the door starts to open to suicidal thoughts. Because when you have a sense of self-efficacy that I can actually produce change in my life, then there's still reason to keep going. Right. But when you feel like nothing that you do is producing realistic or meaningful change, that's when we start to think, you know what, check please, I'm done. And that's when it starts to become very dangerous. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm, as you're talking, I'm reliving my experience. And I had a counselor, I had a life coach, and I think what probably impacted me as much as anybody else is that when I went to go see a doctor for the first time, or a counselor for that matter, and when I began to verbalize what I was feeling and not see shock on the other side. I'm sure people come and visit you and they think, okay, boy, I've got a doozy for you, but then to be comforted to feel like, okay, this is not good health, but it is normal.
Yeah, and normal, I mean, there's no such thing, and that's the problem. I think a lot of people feel like, I'm so abnormal, I'm like this horrible thing of what I'm doing, and I can't possibly tell anybody about this because certainly nobody can understand what this is actually like and why I do the things I do. And you make a great distinction that, yeah, professional clinicians, we've really heard it all, and we've heard it a lot of times, and we understand why, and it's about helping individuals come to a sense of meaning and purpose behind the symptoms, behind the things that they're doing, and helping to recognize that depression and anxiety both are really self-feeding animals. They start to block out positive stimulus and just magnify any negative, any mistake that you make, any shortcoming that you have gets the spotlight right on it. Whereas if somebody gives you a compliment, it just gets dismissed as, they were just being nice. And so when you get to that point, it just grows and takes on this energy and life of its own, and you're just kind of at its mercy until you really do take the step and get to somebody that's able to kind of rip you up from looking 3 feet ahead and actually look out at your whole life and see there's a lot more going on than these few failures or mistakes that you keep looking at and obsessing over.
Well, let's talk about timing, because I've known people who have gotten a knee replacement surgery or a hip replacement surgery. They all say the same thing after that. Boy, I wish I had done this 5 or 10 years ago. I didn't, if I had done this when it wasn't hurting as bad as when I went in. And I imagine that applies the same. If someone recognizes these symptoms sooner rather than later, I mean, your work has got to be a lot more difficult when you're dealing with 10 or 15 years of suppression.
Absolutely. And Americans are notorious for being horrible about getting checks, doing routine checkups. We tend to access healthcare, whether it be medical or mental, when we're at when something breaks. When we really go all the way down, like a tooth falls out, we're like, oh, better go to the dentist now. Or like, with mental health, it's like when we're finally considering an overdose or something, that's like, oh, maybe I should get help. And by then it's oftentimes too late because the plan's already been made. So you're 100% right that the sooner that you can access care, the better off it's going to be, the easier it's going to be. But that's where having these discussions are so important, because people, when you do media around mental health, you think, all right, we're saying a lot of the same stuff again, it's all out there, but it's the one person that sees it at that time and it's the right time for them that they're able to say, you know what, I'm not firing on all cylinders, I'm a little bit off. Maybe if I go talk to somebody, I can actually try to right this ship and we can head in the right direction. So it is so important for the timing, and you're right. Once you get 10 years under the belt, it's a lot more work, it's a lot harder. But sometimes it's as easy as getting into, it's like, I liken it to a pimple, like a zit.
Which we can all relate to.
I think everybody can relate. But until you get at that one thing that's down under the skin that keeps causing the pain, the irritation, the boil, whatever it is, we have to get that out, and then the healing can really start. Until then, even if you're taking medication, you're really working on a superficial level. You're dealing with symptoms. You're not actually getting at the root cause. That's where talk therapy is so essential, because the medication can help with the symptoms to allow you to come and engage in talk therapy. But talk therapy is where you're really going to get at that underlying cause. What's really going on here?
One of the great blessings for me was my best friend was and is in the pharmaceutical business. He explained to me what the medications do. He explained to me what the medications will not do for me. And the goal, he told me, I'll never forget this, the goal is to be thinking about when you're going to come off of these medications, because this is not the solution here. It's to help you get through, but there's a root cause that we need to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, again, I know I keep kicking Americans here, but it's kind of in the whole world. We've become as a culture very much, we want a pill to fix everything. And it's not gonna fix everything. I mean, it can make the symptoms less prominent. It can help you to get back to a more meaningful engagement in your life. But if you're not willing to take that next step and really do the deeper work, and I think that a lot of people do get reliant on the medication and they keep just upping the dose thinking, well, I'm not quite better, I just need more. And it's like, well, have you worked in therapy? No, I'm just working, I'm taking medication. And it's like, no, there's a whole other piece, and it's the work. You have to put in the work to really get through it.
Dr. Nawalanic, thanks for your time and thanks for everything you're doing.
Thanks, Ryan, for sure.
It. You can find more information and resources for yourself and those you care about at shutoutthestigma.com.